Did you just put the ring on, or are you in the first few years of your marriage? Welcome to the First Year Marriage Show, the podcast dedicated to helping newlyweds navigate the first few years of marriage. My husband, Marcus, and I will be sharing marriage tips to help you build a strong foundation for your marriage. We believe having a strong foundation is essential to having a happy, healthy, and lasting marriage. We will also be learning from the experiences of awesome married couples who have been where you are today, taking from them lessons to help you build a strong foundation for the lasting marriage you desire. Take a deep breath, relax, learn, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to another episode of the First Year Marriage Show. I am Marcus Kusi, and in today's episode, I'll be having a conversation with Tony and Alisa DiLorenzo about their first year of marriage. Tony and Alisa have been married for more than 18 years. They have two beautiful kids, and they live in San Diego, California. They are well-respected marriage coaches, speakers, and co-host the top-ranked marriage podcast in iTunes called The One Extraordinary Marriage Show. Together, they help married couples to be intentional about their marriage, take action, enjoy sex, be loving in their marriage. Tony and Alisa, would you want to share with us when you guys got married and share your story, how you met each other?
Sure. Thanks for having us on, Marcus.
Yeah, we really appreciate the opportunity to share with you and with your audience.
Yeah, so Alisa and I met 20 years ago, so the summer of 1994 at the University of Colorado at Boulder campus. I was a junior, and Alisa was a junior going into her senior year. So I was actually a sophomore, grade-wise, I was a sophomore going into my junior year. Alisa came from DePaul University, which is a small school out in Greencastle, Indiana. And she was out in Colorado for a internship for the summer. And the internship, those that were in the internship were staying at the fraternity house that I was a part of at Boulder there. Mm-hmm. And for the summer, I was basically a cook and what they called a hasher, which is somebody who basically just cleans up after people and makes sure that the house is clean and orderly. And so it was there that we first met in the living room of the Delta Chi house, and we watched the O.J. Simpson chase and World Cup 94. Yeah. That's how we met, was on a couch watching O.J. Simpson and World Cup.
World Cup, yeah. So every 4 years when the World Cup comes around, it's kind of like an anniversary for us because we think back to that summer that we watched countless games. Because while I was there for the internship program, I was having a lot more fun spending time with Tony instead.
Yeah, so it was a fun summer. Nowhere... especially for me that summer, was I looking for, my future wife. That wasn't on the docket at all. We just happened to hit it off, really sitting around, talking, really connecting as we drove around Colorado, would take walks around Boulder. We just connected. But again, it was never my intention, even during that summer as we were connecting, that we would ever do anything more than that, because she was going to go back to school in Indiana and she was going to have her life and I was going to have my life. So let's just have fun this summer and make a run at it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. It's funny the way married couples meet each other. Some people, sometimes it's planned. Some people, they know, I'm going here to look for my future partner. Do you guys remember what particular soccer game that you were watching during that moment?
What game? I don't remember.
I have a short-term memory as it is, so trying to go back 20 years.
I just remember just being sprawled out on the couches in the fraternity house. And
you've always said, though, because I would cook breakfast every morning. So Alisa she'd come in early and just hang out with me as I was cooking and getting things ready for everybody. And she would just sit there, and she has said numerous times over the years, she's like, you know what? I always knew Tony could cook before we started dating.
Yeah,
that's definitely a plus.
It is a plus, a man that can actually fend for himself in the kitchen was, a good thing when you're a college senior and, you're like, okay, can I find a guy that can actually just cook a meal? So,
yeah. So how will you describe your first year of marriage in one or two words?
Wow. Our first year of marriage, I would say two words. I would say adjustment and challenging.
Wow.
Yeah, I would, and mine would be just, man, it was both awkward and an adjustment for sure. I think I would have to go with those as well because it was and I would actually, the word I would add in there for me, it was difficult. That would be my word. It was difficult just trying to figure out how the two of us were to mesh day after day, and in this space back then in a 1-bedroom apartment in Palm Desert, California.
So with the adjustments, like how did you guys figure out what adjustments you were going through? Because I know it's something that a lot of newlyweds have difficulty with. Even though you've lived together or lived under the same roof, you still have issues going through that adjustments period. Because now that you're married, your parents probably expect more from you. Your friends also expect more from you, and society in general probably expects more from you. So how were you guys able to discover those adjustments, and how did you manage to come to a compromise to be able to adjust to each other and your married life?
Yeah, in those early days, I would say we had decent communication. It wasn't great. We fumbled around a lot, just trying to be able to speak clearly and openly, and that didn't always work out. So we continued to work on that, and that helped for sure, was just our willingness to go, okay, we need to figure this out, because nobody does tell you it's going to be difficult or awkward or there's going to be an adjustment period. It's like you said, there's this expectation like, hey, you're married, everything's great now. And I will say, we got married, it's going on 18 years here. Back then, we didn't have the resources that are available now. We didn't, we didn't have the access to amazing podcasts like this one. It's amazing that we even got through sometimes because the resources weren't there, or we didn't even know where to find them. And so, a podcast like this one, the First Year Marriage Show is so wonderful because it allows those people who are newlyweds to listen in and go, wow, I'm not alone, where a lot of the times we felt alone.
Oh, sure. Yeah, because, I think Hollywood gives us this, Hollywood and, New York Times bestsellers, while we love them, they give us this kind of false expectation of what marriage is going to be like, that all of your problems are going to be wrapped up in a 2-hour, if you're going to have a problem, you're going to resolve it in 2 hours and, go on with the rest, or less, and go on with the rest of your day. And I think, we both kind of, I won't speak for Tony, but I know I sort of had the knight in shining armor is going to sweep me off my feet. And, we're not going to have any problems whatsoever because problems are for other people. They're not for us. And then all of a sudden I'm, living with this man who, doesn't handle finances the same way I do, doesn't, the whole toilet seat issue and which way is the toilet paper supposed to go, over or under. And the first time his mom came, and Tony's Italian, and I will never forget the first time his mom came to our apartment, and I had a jar of tomato sauce in the, she was kind of looking through my cupboards, and I had a jar of tomato sauce in there. And I just remember her looking at me and looking at Tony thinking, oh my gosh, my son is going to starve because he doesn't have a woman that can make him homemade Italian sauce. And, so those family negotiations that had to happen and, all of those types of things that you come into marriage and you think it's all going to be this walk in the park. And the reality is that you're constantly negotiating and having really to pick your battles.
Yeah. That's, you keep talking.
Is it something really worth fighting for, or can you give on a certain point because it's not nearly as critical to you as it is to your spouse?
Yeah, I completely understand that because with our marriage during our first year, I remember, I think in the first few months, we had a lot of communication issues. So it really caused us to have some arguments that I personally didn't want to have. And my wife was having stress because of the arguments. And one thing that really helped us was we sat down and we talked together and we came to a conclusion that this is what you're trying to say to me and I'm trying to say in a different way and I cannot understand that. And basically what that meant to us was we both spoke different languages. And I didn't even know that men and women spoke different languages. And because we're able to identify those situations, we're able to come to a conclusion, to be able to have a particular plan of action to resolve the problems that we're having in the initial stages of our adjustment period.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the adjustments that you went through, I know definitely you are going to have some problems or conflicts or any disagreements or some hard moments in your marriage. Can you walk us through a difficult time that you guys had, like a conflict or a problem? Maybe it could be the toilet seat issue or or the cooking issue, and what actions that you took together as a married couple to resolve them instead of allowing it to ruin your marriage. Because what we realize is that most newlyweds who go through situations like these, they don't take action, and that results in them deciding to call it quits or end their marriage.
Absolutely. Well, I think, case in point, we'll talk about the tomato sauce one first, because it's kind of a funny one, but lots of your listeners, I'm sure, have the dreaded mother-in-law issues. And, my mother-in-law and we have an incredible relationship. And even that was kind of a funny thing. But it was, after she left and Tony and I are having this conversation. And I remember looking at him going, I honestly don't have any idea how to make homemade tomato sauce. I mean, my mother never showed me, was raised not in an Italian household. So I don't have the skill set. And, I told Tony, I said, if it's going to be a big deal for your mom, you're going to need to talk to her. And I think that's one of the things that, newlyweds need to embrace, the idea that if there's a conflict with a parent, if it's your parent, you talk to them. If it's your spouse's parents, they're the ones that go and talk to their parents, because it's so easy. It would have been easy for Tony to be like, you know what, if you've got a problem with my mom, you go talk to her. Yeah. And what that does is it puts everybody in a really awkward situation, whereas the child can go to the parent and say, you know what, and I think Tony probably did say something to his mom, like, I'm not starving. Although those first years he might have been, because I hardly had any kind of cooking repertoire, but he at least was getting some kind of nourishment. It wasn't good. I've gotten much better.
You want to talk about problems? It was called no food in the house. It was called eating pizzas, like frozen pizzas, bean burritos, like frozen fish sticks, like every third night. That was like our meals.
That was our rotation. Yeah.
So you talk about, that's stuff that we can laugh about now, because we've both have learned, how to make food and what we enjoy. But in that first year of marriage, we were kids. We were 23 and 22, and we thought we knew everything, and we really didn't. And so we had to grow up together and realize that, yeah, you know what? This probably isn't going to be sufficient for us for the long term. But it's a problem, because you have me who's going, man, this is all we're going to eat. And I wasn't really explaining that to Alisa. So I would just eat and I wouldn't say anything. And so I would just let it build up, and thinking, by me huffing and puffing, she'd understand that maybe, we should have something else for dinner. Maybe better yet, maybe I should have stepped up to the plate and said, you know what, honey, why don't we plan out our meals? And I would have a say in it before we even made it. It's just, wow, that would have been just amazing to have done that.
And like Tony said, these are things that we can laugh at. And for all the newlyweds that are listening, yes, at some point in time in the future, you will be able to look back and laugh on these things that seem monumental right now, because the gift of time and learning. Shows like the First Year Marriage Show, you're providing this education from couples that have been married for, significantly more than the first year. And you're able to provide your audience with that wealth of experience.
Yeah. I just want to chime in here a little bit. Yeah. So with our first year, I remember my wife knew how to bake. I didn't know how to bake, but I knew how to cook rice. That was something that I had expertise in. So every time that I came home and, she didn't cook, or it was something I didn't like, I was like, okay, I'm just going to eat my rice, and I just, put it up, and that was it for me. And that caused some issues for us, because she knew how to cook a little bit, just that she couldn't cook the rice to my standards or my taste. And I was able to, without communication, talk to her and show her how to cook the rice to the way I wanted it and the way that I think that if you go to a restaurant, it should be cooked in that way. And that really helped us to be able to communicate better and improve our marriage.
And I love that you took the action there to actually show her instead of just saying, well, you know what, cook it for 20 minutes and add salt or, whatever the combination is that makes that rice. You're like, let me show you. Yeah. Let me come alongside you and show you this because it's important to me. And I don't want this to be a source of conflict in our marriage. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, as a spouse who's, being taught, and something of that nature, it's almost sometimes we put up our walls and we get defensive like, oh, you're trying to teach me this. I already know that. At those points in time, sometimes you got to step back and just go, man, I don't know everything and I could learn something new. So you have to be, even today, Alisa and I we still, she knows more things than I do and I know other things more than she does. And we continue to learn from one another and grow together.
Yeah. The funny thing is right now, my wife is able to cook rice better than me.
Well, you did an excellent job then.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that she's able to cook it way better than I was able to do it. And now she does the rice cooking. I don't even do it now. So that was a pretty awesome experience for me.
That's fabulous.
Yeah. So I know that with marriage, to be able to grow your marriage from day one, to be able to have a really awesome and extraordinary marriage, you need to be intentional about your marriage. You have to put in a lot of intentionality into your marriage. With your marriage, I know you guys have a really happy, healthy, and an extraordinary marriage, and you impact a lot of couples. You've impacted our marriage in many ways, and we are really thankful for that. With newlyweds, what are some of the intentional activities that you and Alisa do, Tony, you and Alisa do, that has really helped you guys to be able to have a happy and healthy marriage that you think newlyweds can also apply to their marriage?
I think the number one thing, no matter if you're in your first year or you're in your 30th, 40th year of marriage, you need to be dating your spouse because it can get very routine. Marriage can get very routine. It's easy because we understand what we each have to do, and being intentional about going out and not just dinner and a movie, but expanding your horizon and doing something fun together really over time builds those memories that you look back upon and go, wow, look what we've done. Look where we've been. And one way to do that is something that Alisa and I called calendar it. It's very simple. You get out your calendars and you look at the month ahead or 2 or 3 or 4 the whole year, and you both pull out your calendars and you go, hey, you know what? On July 30th, Friday night, we're going to go out on a date night. And August 25th, we're going to go on a date night. And September 15th, and then October, 31st is Halloween. We're going to make that a fun date night. And so you're being intentional about spending that time together. I know a lot of people go, oh, but it's just date night. It's nothing big. It's amazing what can happen when you really just step away from just a dinner and a movie, find out what each other enjoy, do new things, don't always go to the same restaurant. And we can raise our hands to that because we have done that in the past. And again, it just becomes a routine. We learn nothing new. We order the same meals. We order the same beverage. We talk about the same things. And by forcing ourselves and being intentional about trying new places, it takes us out of our comfort zone. And because of that, we start to talk about new things or we look at things differently. And I believe that should be one of the things couples should start from the first day they're married is go, let's keep dating each other, because you're gonna come through and go through situations in marriage with, loss of jobs, kids are gonna come around, kids are gonna leave, and then it's empty nester time. Keep those dates going.
Alisa, is there something that you want to add to it?
Well, I think in addition to that is there has to be a focus from day one that couples make their communication a priority, that they don't stop talking about the big dreams, what they want to achieve, not just for the family, but career and things like that, what their fears are and concerns, just because they've now said, I do. So many people in that courtship period, they have these amazing conversations. And then all of a sudden when, the rings slip on the fingers and we start paying bills and have a mortgage payment, we don't talk about that stuff anymore. We just talk about, don't forget to bring home the milk and, we're going to be at the Joneses for dinner on Friday night. So building in communication, very much like what we offer everyone that comes to One Extraordinary Marriage, is a PDF of 77 questions to get the conversation started. And that's an opportunity for people to just have those questions. Like if they don't know what to ask, they can pick up those questions and continue from, and I love that you're asking this for newlyweds, because they can start at the very beginning, building deep communication roots, so that when those challenges come up, like Tony mentioned, they're able to talk and work their way through them.
That's really awesome. I really appreciate the insights the two of you are giving to our listeners, and I know they are all enjoying it and they are listening really carefully, and I'm pretty sure they're going to apply that in their marriage. Tony, I know you talked about calendar aid. I'm thinking, how would you apply this method or this program that you implement with Alisa to be able to help you guys stop being really busy with your lives and careers, but rather use that to be able to focus on connecting and spending time with each other?
Yeah. I mean, the big thing is, and for those of you who are newlyweds, one of the things I hope to impart on you is stop the glorification of busy in your marriage. Stop it. Stop being like, I'm so busy or I'm too busy. You say that to your spouse enough, guess what? They're going to find somewhere else to go. They just are. And really, the glorification of busy is just sort of like, oh, I'm this, I'm that. And really, when we're in marriage, it's awesome to just go, I got nothing to do but be with you right now. And it's finding these times in your day-to-day that you can go, you know what? I don't want to be busy. I just want to sit with you. I want to hang out on the deck, the patio, the porch, chilling inside, just you and I. And hopefully you can do that without the TV on. Maybe it's just some radio. Maybe it's just you guys being able to just slow dance, wherever you may be. I mean, there are times when Elise and I will do stuff like that. It's not all the time. It's spontaneous. Sometimes it's just we stand up and we just dance because we're hanging out. But being busy is just, it's overdone, and it's really going to set a wedge between you guys. Because somebody who's too busy, why do I want to be around you anymore? I mean, it's something that we had to work on long and hard in our own marriage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it demonstrates where your priorities are when you say you're really busy. If you're not really busy with your spouse, then they're not in the right priority ranking in your life. If everything else, if your career, if you're involved in sports, you've got extracurricular activities, if you're volunteering, if you're doing for everybody else and your spouse is just kind of at the bottom of the list, that's not going to work for the long term. Granted, there are seasons in, our lives where sometimes the priority list is upside down because of, new babies or, something going on at work. But it's so critical to right that ship, to have your spouse at the top of the list, because when your focus is on that primary relationship, then everything else falls into place because your foundation is rock solid.
Yeah, I completely agree to everything that you both said. It's really inspiring. One thing that I would like to add again is with our marriage, what we realized was, because I'm in school and I have other jobs to do and I have to be home with our daughter, so we made it very, very intentional from day one for us to be able to spend time together every day, even if it's just 5 minutes. We made sure we did that, and that has really helped us in many ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Smart.
And I mean, Alisa says it often, if you're spending 30 minutes on social media and you're saying you're busy, then it's probably wise to set down your phone, to set down your iPad, or tablet or computer for those 30 minutes and spend it with your spouse, a lot more good will come out of it in the long run.
Yeah. Would you guys want to share with us one hilarious or happy moment you had in your first year? Anything that was really exciting and really, really fun that you think we are going to laugh out loud?
Well, are you thinking about the sickness one?
Yes.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to let Alisa say this one. I wouldn't consider it an exciting moment for me. But it was definitely something that we have looked back upon and have laughed over many of times. So I'll let Alisa take it.
So right around 4th of July, Tony gets food poisoning.
Ooh.
And exactly.
At this point in time, we were married 6, 7, 8, 9 months.
9 months. Yeah. And so whenever Tony gets sick, he gets really, really sick, and he thinks he's dying every time, because he doesn't get sick that often, but when he does, it's stomach or food poisoning. I mean, you really do feel like you're dying, and he was just so sick, and he's so finally
throwing up. I mean, I was throwing up, diarrhea.
Everything.
I mean, it's one of those experiences. And again, we can laugh now. We're going to get to the funnier part of this, but it's one of those experiences. Your first year of marriage, and I am seriously just hacking out everything I have in my body, just dry heaving. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, my poor wife. I mean, like, this is so wrong.
Well, and, so I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh. I mean, is this like my knight in shining armor does all of this, right? Like, he's so sick. And so I drive him to the urgent care. And of course, because it's around 4th of July weekend, urgent care is incredibly slow. So, he's miserable in the waiting room, and we finally get in. And
I'm surprised you remember that. I don't even remember the waiting room.
Trust me, I remember the entire day.
I don't remember the waiting room.
So, the doctor says, okay, well, here's what, he's very dehydrated, all of this kind of stuff. And he looks at me.
Did they give me an IV?
I think they did.
Yeah, I think so.
That part, that was irrelevant because it's what comes next. Because
it's irrelevant. They're poking me with needles. Whatever.
Well, because that was all while you were there. But then the doctor looks at me and says, he is so sick, you're going to need to give him a suppository. And I'm looking at this doctor going, I am not giving my husband a suppository. Tell people
what some people may not know.
A suppository is it's a way to deliver medication rectally. And so, this doctor is telling me that I'm going to have to touch my husband. And I'm like, no, thank you. I did not sign up for this with the wedding vows. This whole in sickness and in health does not cover suppositories. Like, no. And so the whole way, we have to go pick up the medication. And the whole way I'm just thinking, this is ridiculous. Like, my first year of marriage and I have to do this, which I know you've got couples listening that have been in, much worse medical situations than this. But this is our funny story. And so I remember, getting home and having, I'm like, all right, we got to do this. And I'm just thinking, I don't want to. Can you figure this out yourself?
I remember just laying down, and the doctor also said to get Gatorade. So I had some Gatorade, and I'm just lying there on this bed. Again, it's in Palm Desert. It's middle of summer. It's hot as could be because we are super poor and we didn't use our air conditioning. It was probably like 120 degrees outside. And I just remember just lying there, and Elisa's like in and out of the room. She's walking in, walks out, sits down on the bed. I'm thinking, okay, let's get this over with. It was just one of those awkward moments, but now we can laugh about it.
Right, because we got through it. I did it. My husband obviously survived that experience. I survived that experience. But it was one of those times when, in that first year where you're just kind of like, this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah, that's really funny. It's something that you didn't even think it was gonna happen. Even if you thought it was gonna happen, probably maybe 5 or 10 years down the road when you are not really in a really healthy state, or something happens out of the blue, but not really in your first year.
Right.
Yeah. Marcus, it's never happened again.
Oh, that's awesome.
So there, I mean, yeah, I'm hearing you, but it's never happened again. And I've been sick, and I've had the flu. I've had food poisoning since then. So it's just so.
It was such just kind of a
unusual situation, but folks, that's what happens, and I'm just blessed to have a woman here beside me who was willing to do that and has stayed beside my side over all these years through the ups and downs. But that was one of those that still, gosh, it just comes back up over and over again.
Because it's a great story to tell.
Yeah, that's a really funny one. I just can't stop laughing. But okay, that's really good. Before we end the show, what book or resource or programs have impacted your marriage the most, and how did it make a difference in your marriage? I know you guys have awesome marriage products for couples that a lot of couples can learn about, and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to share some highlights into the programs that you have available too.
Yeah. You know what? Before we talk about the ones that we have, I want to talk about a couple others that we have used over the years that have made an impact in our lives. One of them is called Jesus Calling. That is a great little devotional book that Alisa and I have been reading almost nightly for the past 3 years. It's a great way that for us to just connect spiritually. Love that book. Intimacy Ignited is another great book. That's all based on the Song of Solomon, and it was the book and the catalyst that really made an impact on our marriage at year 11. So 6 years ago now. That's another great book.
I think one thing for the newlyweds out there to keep in mind too is that as they're facing these challenges, they don't have to do this by themselves.
Right.
So often, and again, I know I'm kind of harping on this, but it's why I love the concept behind your show so much, is that it's very easy when the bubble bursts and we find out that, we aren't living this Hollywood marriage to think we're all alone. We're the only couple in the world that this is happening to. And I can't, I can't tell anybody, or I can't, share this with anybody because they're going to look at me like I have 3 heads because I'm the only one this is happening to. And shows like yours, shows like what we do at One Extraordinary Marriage, get the word out that you're not alone. Right. And when you realize that maybe you need a little bit of help, maybe you need a coach to come alongside you, maybe you need to pick up these books or some of the other, I know Tony's going to share some of the products that we have, it's okay to admit that you need help. And in fact, like I tell, the clients that I work with, recognizing that you need help early and taking the action to make the change in your marriage is the best thing that you can do. It's not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. That you will do whatever is necessary to keep your marriage on the path to extraordinary.
Yeah. And so here are the two programs in a book, or one program in a book that we offer. And these are the 2 areas we hear about most from couples where they struggle. Doesn't matter if they're newlyweds or they've been married for 30 or 40 years. 2 areas are communication and sex. And so for both of those, we have something. One is he zigs, she zags, get your communication on the same path. And for those of you who are interested, you can look that up at hezigshezags.com. Communication, emotional intimacy is key. And we've talked about it here. Marcus, you've talked about it, how you and your wife had, communication struggles. Yeah. We've had it. We know couples. I mean, it is honestly the biggest issue and struggle that couples face. So let's get on the same path with our spouse as fast as we can, because the faster we can do that, the more joy and happiness we'll have. And it's a learning process. It's like going through a course. So he zigs, she zags is fantastic for that. When it comes to sex, we believe in something called the 7 Days of Sex Challenge. We've done it numerous times, and we have that book available. And that just helps couples walk through this. Could we honestly have and be sexually intimate for 7 days straight? And so that's that's something that folks can pick up. We outline what you can do each day. So it's not just about that sexual intimacy, but it really pulls in the emotional, the spiritual intimacy as well. And folks can check that out at 7daysofsex.com.
Yeah. So I know you guys had a 60 days of sex. I don't know if you want to share that insight for our listeners.
Yeah, well, and the 60 Days of Sex Challenge is what started One Extraordinary Marriage. And that came at year 11, where Alisa and I really plateaued in our marriage. And, at that point in time, we could have just lived as roommates, waited for our kids to finish up school, graduate, and then we could have been on our merry way, or we could go radical on our marriage, make changes, take action, and see what would happen. And that's what we did. So we took on the 60 Days of Sex Challenge. That's what we called it. It was for us. And we ended up completing 40 out of 60 days. And that honestly transformed us. It's what, people will learn in He Zigs, She Zags, or 7 Days of Sex Challenge. It's all that stuff we learned over those 60 days. And since then, with the One Extraordinary Marriage show and, 200 plus episodes of sharing, this is how we stay connected. This is how we, open up. This is how we take off the masks. It all started there. So for folks who are interested in that and learning more about it, you can just go to episode 1 of the One Extraordinary Marriage show. We shared all there and really open up.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing these resources with us. I'll be linking them in the show notes so listeners can just visit them directly if they are driving right now or if they are cooking or doing something at home and they don't have access to the internet right away. And Tony and Alisa, can you please share with us how best we can connect with you online or through any other social media platforms?
Absolutely. Well, you can find us at oneextraordinarymarriage.com, and that's one spelled out, so ONE. You can also find us on Facebook with the same One Extraordinary Marriage. I am on Twitter at Alisa DiLorenzo.
And I'm at Tony M. DiLorenzo. And we have our Instagram account, One Extraordinary Marriage, and iTunes, Stitcher. Look up the One Extraordinary Marriage show. You'll find, like I said, at the time of this recording, 200 plus shows of just talking about all sorts of things that happen in marriage, from communication and your emotional intimacy to spiritual to sexual. And we just share openly and honestly about that.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Alisa and Tony, for sharing your first year marriage experience with us. Our listeners and myself really appreciate learning about your journey and the insights that you've given to us today. I'm pretty sure we can all apply them in our marriage to improve our marriage and make our marriages better and extraordinary. I'm really glad that you took time out of your busy schedule to be with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the First Year Marriage Show. To submit a question, feedback, or suggestions for the podcast, visit firstyearmarriage.com/feedback. Apply what you've learned today and build a strong foundation for the happy, healthy, and lasting marriage you desire. Enjoy your marriage. Enjoy your life.